Instructor, I am thinking about taking your course on how to become a salesperson in the marketing research industry.
Glad to hear it. Do you have any questions?
Yes, I've heard that in this course students mark themselves.
Yes. It's an informal assessment technique called self-evaluation. The whole point of it is that you judge the value of your own work.
Great. I'll give myself an A.
Well, you very well might. It just depends on how well your work measures up against the standards.
Standards? What's standards?
At the beginning of the course I show my students something called a rubric. The rubric describes 4 levels of performance, ranging from inadequate to adequate, to strong, to superior.
Okay, 4 levels of performance. Then what?
Then I explain to the students what behaviors and types of work correspond to each of these 4 levels.
Okay, and then?
Each student keeps a journal they use to assess their own work. Each week, they have an assignment to do. And each week, after they've done the assignment, they evaluate their own work. Was it adequate or inadequate? Strong? Superior?
Oh, now wait a minute. I have to use a journal in a course I took in university. So, I already know how to do a journal.
Well, that's good. But teaching you how to do a journal is not the thing I'm trying to teach you here. What I'm going to teach you here is how to evaluate your own performance. How to self-evaluate. The journal is merely a tool for doing that. A means to an end.
All right. So each week I use the journal to rate the level of my own performance. That sounds simple enough.
Well, there's a little more than that. After you rate the level of your performance, you must then explain your rating. Whether you categorized your own performance as adequate, superior, strong, or whatever. This is based on the standards in the rubric.
Okay, fine. And then?
And then, I grade your assignment as well. Once that's done, we compare notes to see how close we were.
So, in the case of a dispute, which mark applies?
Well, I doubt it would be as strong as a dispute. More of a discrepancy. In any case, mine is the one that counts toward your final grade.
I see. Do you use this self-evaluation technique in all your courses?
No. It works better in some contexts than others.
Like when?
When students are mature enough to take charge of their own learning.
What do you mean?
It's often the case that when adult learners take a course, they are seeking to acquire certain skills that will help them in their career. So they are more interested in mastering the skills than they are interested in the mark.
Really? But do I at least get extra marks for doing a journal?
No. In this course, the journal is strictly for your own learning.
Whoa. That sounds really unfair. Why would you make me do all that work if I don't get any credit for it? I'd say that's almost unethical.
You think it's unethical because you don't get a mark for it.
Exactly. Why would I do all that extra work for no credit?
Then, this may not be the right kind of learning situation for you. You'll have to decide. Ask yourself this. Do you just want to pass the course? Or do you actually want to acquire the skills to become an effective salesperson?
Well, let me think. I want both.
But in the long run, which is more important to you?
In the long run? To be an effective salesperson.
So, to be an effective salesperson, do you think it is going to be necessary to have an ability to assess how you are doing in a real sales situation? Remember, when you're out in the real world, you won't have your professor there to give you feedback.
Well, okay. Yes. It will be important for me to be able to assess my own performance.
Okay, good. Now let's take this a step further. Would it be useful for you to be able to assess your own performance in a safe environment like a classroom, before you go out into the real world?
Well, yes. It's a lot safer in the classroom.
Yes, indeed. And that's one of the great advantages of the self-evaluation technique. And here's another advantage. By assessing yourself, you quickly get an appreciation for what comes naturally to you and what doesn't. In other words, you'd quickly become more aware of your own style. So you could make choices that take advantage of your own comfort zone. Do you think that would be an advantage?
Yes, I guess it would.
There are more advantages. When you are the person doing the evaluating, then you are the person who decides what you want to work on. It adds motivation, because you are in charge.
Okay, so are you saying it's all totally wonderful then? Aren't there any disadvantages?
Yes, of course there are some disadvantages. Like we've already said, it's a lot of work, and it's not suited to everyone. And there is a certain subjectivity. You will have to learn to assess yourself accurately for it to be of benefit to you, and to be credible to others. At first, there is a tendency for students to overestimate their performance if they are overconfident, or underestimate if they lack self-esteem. That's why you and I have to compare notes, so that you eventually become more objective. It takes some time.
Right. I might think I deserve an A and you might not.
You never know. It all depends on the objective standards in the rubric.
Okay. But how do I know the so-called objective standards in the rubric are valid?
There are several ways. For one thing, effective salespeople have been studied extensively. On many aspects of sales performance, there is a general consensus about what constitutes a superior performance versus a merely adequate performance. And these are the standards that are reflected in the rubric.
Yes, well, doesn't it all just come down to whether or not you got the sale?
Well, certainly that's critically important.
Exactly. So, let's say you did all the things that were classified as a superior performance, but you didn't get the sale. What good are the standards?
I see that you're still skeptical that this technique is valid. That's not unusual. Most students start the course feeling a little skeptical. But during the course, you get to test out the validity for yourself on a couple of real prospects.
Really? You make real sales calls?
Yes. You send a real prospecting letter to a real prospect. You make a real follow-up phone call. And you make a real sales call in person. Each time, you get a chance to see for yourself whether the standards in the rubric seem valid to you, based on how things actually go.
And of course, afterward, I get to write it all up in the journal.
And evaluate yourself. And then you and I talk about it.
But that could be a real downer. What if I don't make the sale?
That would be disappointing. But you'd still be a winner. Because it would give you a chance to self-assess. To see what went well, and what did not. Where you did well, and where you need to improve next time.
I see. So it's all up to me?
Actually, not entirely. Suppose something doesn't go well. Suppose we realize that there's something we both thought you had a good grip on, that actually you don't. That would tell me that I need to go over the material with you again. Or it might even mean that I would have to come up with entirely new material. Something you find more relevant.
Okay. But what if you do all that? Go over the material, or make all those changes, and it still doesn't work?
Sometimes when that happens, students revisit their goals.
Oh. You mean they just give up?
No. I mean that they re-examine the goals they set for themselves. What they wanted to accomplish. How they thought they would accomplish them. Sometimes, they come up with more realistic ideas about how they will accomplish their goals. Ideas that are more based on who they really are, and what comes most naturally to them.
So, they still become good salespeople?
Yes, but they find tools they are more suited to.
They don't just give up.
Rarely, and here's why. When they have an ability to be more realistic about their own skills and inclinations, they tend to have more confidence that they can overcome the hurdles. And so they have more persistence.
So, are you saying you think I really could succeed at this?
Yes, if you are willing to put in the extra work that's required to learn how to self-assess.
Well, I am willing to do that.
You sure?
Yes, because I really do want to become a good salesperson. But it sounds like this is a lot of extra work for you.
It comes with the territory.
Wow. That's dedication.
It's why I'm an instructor. It gives me great satisfaction.
Well, I guess that settles the matter.
That settles it? You mean, I've got you convinced? You'll register for the course?
Yes. As long as I can get to learn to do self-evaluation. And as long as you'll help me.
Great. Glad to hear it.
You know, you really are a good salesperson.
The idea sells itself. All I have to do is explain it.